On the table beside my hospital bed was a paper with my signature, Eleanor Mitchell. I didn't remember signing it, but my daughter had assured the hospital that I had agreed to pay the entire $87,000 for my heart surgery. When I asked her why, her answer hurt more than my surgical incision. "Mom, your retirement money is more than you need. Rebecca and I need to save for the kids' future." What they didn't know was that 3 days before my surgery, I had discovered something in my daughter's filing cabinet, something that could make them lose everything. I blinked slowly, the anesthesia still clouding my thoughts. The pain medication was wearing off, and I could feel a deep throb beneath my bandages, but it was nothing compared to the ache spreading through my chest as I glanced at my silent phone. Not a single message, not a single call. "We'll be there every minute. Mom, we'll take shifts sitting by your bed." That's what Rebecca had promised, her arms wrapped around me just before they wheeled me into surgery. She'd even shed a tear, wiping it quickly so I wouldn't see her mascara smudge. Thomas had squeezed my hand, his voice unusually soft. "Don't worry about anything, Mom. We've got the insurance and everything covered." The nurse, a young man with kind eyes and tired shoulders, adjusted my IV. "Mrs. Mitchell, is there someone I can call to pick you up? Your family hasn't responded to our calls since yesterday." I tried to swallow, but my throat was desert dry. "They said they'd be here." He looked away, a flicker of something petty, maybe crossing his face. "Sometimes people get busy. Let me get you some water." I looked down at my phone, 8 unanswered calls I'd sent. Not a single message back. But on Rebecca's Instagram, posted just 30 minutes ago, was a photo of my entire family at a 5-star restaurant downtown. "Sometimes you just need time for yourself." "Self-care," read the caption beneath the image of champagne flutes and my grandchildren's smiling faces. The ceiling seemed to tilt slightly, and it wasn't from the medication. They weren't coming. I hadn't always been the kind of mother who ended up alone in a hospital room. For 72 years, I had been Eleanor Mitchell, devoted daughter, loving wife, sacrificing mother, the only child of struggling parents. I'd abandoned my college scholarship to care for my father after his stroke, and my mother through her early onset dementia. I'd met James Mitchell when he came to fix our leaking roof, a kind but strict construction engineer who believed in paying bills on time and saving for rainy days. We'd built a modest life together, a 3-bedroom house in a good school district, 2 children we were determined would have every opportunity we hadn't. Careful savings, sensible cars, vacations within driving distance. I returned to teaching high school English once the kids were in school, retiring only when James's health began to fail 15 years ago. "Ellie," James had said to me during his final months, his voice raspy, but his eyes still sharp. "You're too good to those kids. One day they'll take it for granted. Promise me you'll look after yourself when I'm gone." I had promised, then promptly broken that promise for the next 7 years. Rebecca Mitchell Cunningham was my firstborn, now 45, a corporate attorney with sleek, highlighted hair and a closet full of designer suits, always reaching, always climbing. 2 marriages, the first to her college boyfriend that ended when her career took off, the second to Robert Cunningham, an architect with a charming smile and, as I would later discover, a gambling problem he kept carefully hidden. To the world on her carefully curated social media, Rebecca was flawless, perfect career, perfect house in the right neighborhood, perfect teenage daughter Megan. What no one saw were the tense phone calls with Robert, the credit card statements she had delivered to my address instead of hers, the way she critiqued Megan's every move until the girl grew quiet around her mother. Thomas Mitchell, my son, had his father's height and my soft heart, a dangerous combination in a world that rewarded neither. At 42, he'd been divorced twice, launched 5 businesses that folded within a year, and still brought his laundry to my house every other Sunday. He lived in the shadow of his successful father, a shadow that grew longer after James died. He drank too much, not spectacularly, not in a way that made headlines, but steadily, quietly. A bottle of whiskey appearing in my recycling bin every time he visited. His relationship with his 16-year-old son, Jason, was strained, full of promises broken and weekends canceled. "Dad's building something big," he'd tell the boy. "Next weekend will be different." It never was. The heart surgery was an emergency, but it was necessary. Years of high blood pressure had taken their toll, and my cardiologist, Dr. Sarah Bennett, had recommended a valve replacement. "With your Medicare and supplemental insurance, most costs should be covered," she'd said. But then came the letter, "Procedure deemed non-essential. Patient responsibility $87,000. Rebecca had taken the letter from my trembling hands. "Don't worry about this. Mom, Thomas and I will handle everything. You just focus on getting better." I believed her. That was my first mistake. My second was not asking questions when she brought me a stack of forms to sign the day before my pre-op appointment. "Just standard authorizations," she said, her voice casual as she pointed to the signature lines. "They need them to process everything." Now, in this sterile hospital room with its beeping monitors and distant voices, I wondered what exactly I had signed. But even worse was what I had discovered 3 days before my surgery, what I had found when I went to Rebecca's house to drop off a casserole and she asked me to grab a folder from her home office. There, left open on her computer screen, was an email to Thomas with the subject line, "Plans for Mom after surgery, Oak Hills Nursing Home and house sale." I hadn't meant to read it, but there it was, in plain text. "Thomas, I've been looking into options. Mom's heart issues give us the perfect opening. After surgery, Dr. Kaplan Roberts' golf buddy can recommend she's no longer able to live independently. Oak Hills has a room available next month. It's not the best place, but it's affordable on her Medicare. Once we have power of attorney, we can list the house. With the new commercial zoning on that side of town, we could get triple what she thinks it's worth. We need to move fast before she figures out the insurance denial. I've submitted the paperwork with her as the responsible party. Talk Monday." I had closed the laptop, put the folder back exactly where she'd said it would be, and left without saying a word. What could I say? That my children were planning to put me away and sell my home from under me, that they had orchestrated the insurance denial, that they saw my health crisis as their perfect opening. I went home, made a cup of tea, and sat very still in James's old armchair, trying to make sense of it all. Then I had called my insurance company directly. "Mrs. Mitchell, there seems to be confusion here. Your supplemental policy should cover this procedure. We have no record of a denial being issued." But my daughter showed me a letter. "The only communication we sent was an approval notice, mailed to you directly last month." I hung up the phone, my hands shaking. I wanted to confront Rebecca immediately, to ask Thomas how they could betray me this way. But something stopped me, a cold, clear voice in my head that sounded remarkably like James. "Wait, Ellie, see how far they'll go. Then protect yourself." So I said nothing. I went to my surgery pretending I didn't know. I hugged my daughter and squeezed my son's hand and believed their promises to be there when I woke up. But they weren't there. And now, as the nurse helped me sit up in bed, I knew I had to make a choice, confront them, or protect myself first. My phone buzzed, a text from Thomas. "Mom, I've talked to a really great nursing home. I'll pick you up on Sunday." Sunday. 3 days away. They weren't even planning to take me home. Patricia Wilson found me sitting in the hospital discharge area, a plastic bag of medications on my lap and a folder of papers clutched in my hands. I must have looked as lost as I felt because her normally composed face crumpled into concern. "Eleanor, what in heaven's name are you doing here alone?" Patricia was my neighbor of 15 years, a retired emergency room nurse with short silver hair and no patience for nonsense. We'd become closer after James died, sharing Sunday papers and keeping spare keys to each other's homes. She was the only person I'd thought to call when the hospital insisted I couldn't leave without someone to drive me. "They didn't come," I said simply. Patricia's lips thinned to a tight line. "Rebecca and Thomas." I nodded, suddenly too tired to explain. "Get in the car," she said, taking my arm with the gentle firmness that came from decades of steering reluctant patience. "You can tell me everything once we get you home." And the house was exactly as I'd left it, dishes drying in the rack, mail stacked neatly on the counter, the ghost of my normal life waiting patiently for my return. But it felt different now, like a stage set rather than a home. Every framed photo of Rebecca and Thomas, every handmade Mother's Day card preserved and displayed, now seemed like artifacts from a fiction I had wanted desperately to believe. Patricia helped me settle on the couch, unpacked my medications, and made tea without asking. It was only when she sat across from me, her eyes direct and unblinking, that the story spilled out: the surgery, the empty promises, the silent phone, the Instagram posts, the email I wasn't supposed to see. "I should have known," she said finally, passing me a box of tissues I hadn't realized I needed. "They pulled the same thing with James's retirement party. Remember, always too busy until they needed something." "They're planning to sell my house," I whispered, still unable to fully believe it. "My home, Patricia, where James and I raised them, where we were supposed to grow old together." Patricia's eyes darkened. "They've been taking advantage of you for years. Eleanor, I've watched it happen. Rebecca borrowing money she never repays. Thomas using your garage like his personal storage unit. Neither of them helping when you had pneumonia last winter." "They're my children," I said weakly. "And you raised them better than this." She leaned forward. "Do you know why I rarely speak about my own kids 3 years ago? They convinced me to co-sign on a business loan for my son-in-law, then a second mortgage on my daughter's house. I lost 2 homes and a shop I'd built from nothing. When the money dried up, so did the phone calls." I stared at her, seeing for the first time the pain she kept carefully hidden behind her competent exterior. "The hardest lesson I ever learned, Eleanor, is that love isn't letting people use you. It took losing everything to understand that." My phone buzzed again. Another text from Thomas. "Arranged for a cleaning service to come prep your house. They'll need access tomorrow." I showed Patricia the message, my hands trembling. "They're moving fast," she said grimly. "What do you want to do?" For the first time since waking up alone in that hospital room, I felt something shift inside me. Not pain, not betrayal, but a slow-burning clarity. I need to find out exactly what they've done, and then I need to stop them. I spent that evening doing something I'd never done before, methodically documenting every dollar I'd given my children over the years. Down payment on Rebecca's first house, $60,000 from my retirement fund. The money for Thomas's first divorce, $45,000. His second, $38,000. The loan to Robert for his can't-miss investment opportunity, $30,000, never repaid. Megan's college tuition when Rebecca and Robert claimed they couldn't afford it, $22,000 per year. Ongoing. The list grew longer. Credit cards I'd co-signed. Cars I'd helped finance. The summer home renovation I'd funded when Rebecca complained about their outdated kitchen. Each item represented a moment when I'd believed I was being a good mother, a supportive parent. Now, in the harsh light of my empty house, they looked more like withdrawals from an ATM that had finally run dry. Patricia brought dinner soup and fresh bread she insisted I eat despite my lack of appetite. She stayed while I made calls to the insurance company, confirming what I already knew: there had never been a denial. The company had approved my procedure weeks ago. "Someone falsified that denial letter," Patricia said, her nurse's precision coming through. "That's fraud. Eleanor." "My own daughter," I whispered. "What did James always say about protecting yourself?" Patricia asked gently. The memory surfaced immediately. James, sitting at our kitchen table with a blue folder, his engineer's methodical mind organizing our finances. "Ellie, I've set up a separate trust for you. Don't tell the kids. You'll need it someday." I had nodded, but never actually opened that trust, feeling guilty about keeping secrets from Rebecca and Thomas. The folder had gone into our safety deposit box at First National Bank, along with the wills and house deed. "I need to find that folder," I said suddenly, sitting up straighter despite the pain in my chest. "And I need to call James's lawyer." Patricia nodded approvingly. "Now you're thinking clearly. What else did you sign before your surgery?" "A stack of forms Rebecca brought. She said they were standard authorizations." "We need to see what those were." Patricia's eyes narrowed. "And we need to find out exactly what they're planning with your house." As if in answer, my phone lit up with an email notification from the local county assessor's office, a property evaluation alert I'd signed up for years ago and forgotten about. "Property at 1842 Maple Drive rezoned for commercial development," I read aloud. "Estimated new valuation $850,000. Patricia whistled low. "Triple the residential value," just like Rebecca's email said. The pieces were falling into place with sickening clarity. My convenient heart surgery, the fake insurance denial, the sudden talk of nursing homes, the rush to get power of attorney. They're not just after my house. I realized they want everything. "Then we need to move faster than they do," Patricia said firmly. As night fell, I found myself standing in my bedroom, staring at old photographs, James and me on our wedding day, Rebecca's high school graduation, Thomas holding baby Jason, the family Christmas from 2 years ago, the last time we'd all been together without someone asking for money. I took each frame down carefully, wrapping them in tissue paper and placing them in a box labeled Archives. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. If they couldn't show up at my hospital bed, they didn't need to watch me from my mantelpiece. My phone rang, startling me. An unknown number. "Grandma?" Megan's voice was soft, uncertain. "Megan, is everything all right?" "I just heard about your surgery. Mom told me you'd been discharged early and didn't want visitors. Are you okay?" My heart squeezed painfully. "I'm home now. Your mother and uncle never came to the hospital." There was a long pause. "I'm so sorry, Grandma." "I had no idea. Mom said everything was handled and you were resting." "Handled," I repeated, the word bitter on my tongue. "Grandma, there's something you should know." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I overheard Mom and Dad talking about selling your house. They've been meeting with realtors." "I know, sweetheart. I found an email." Another pause, then, "Grandma, I have something you should hear. I recorded one of their conversations. I know it's wrong, but I was afraid they were tricking you." "You recorded them." I sank onto the edge of my bed, a mixture of shock and gratitude washing over me. "I'll send it to you now. And Grandma, I'm so sorry. I should have told you sooner." After we hung up, I waited for the file to arrive, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone when it buzzed with Megan's message. I pressed play, and Rebecca's cool, clear voice filled my silent bedroom. "Once she's in the nursing home, we'll need her to sign the power of attorney. With her heart condition, it won't take much to convince the court she's no longer competent to make decisions." Thomas's reply was hesitant but agreeing. "My buddy works at Oak Hills. They know how to keep old folks busy and dependent on medication. The house alone will net us at least $800,000 with the new zoning, split 3 ways, you, me, and enough to cover her care for however long we could finally get out from under all this debt." "What about Megan's college fund? Mom's been paying that." "We'll figure something out. Maybe Jason can take a gap year too, help you with the new business venture." I stopped the recording, my heart pounding dangerously in my chest. This wasn't just about money. They wanted me gone, tucked away, medicated, forgotten. For the first time since James died, I felt truly afraid. But beneath the fear was something else, a cold, hard resolve I hadn't known I possessed. I reached for the bedside drawer where I kept important papers and pulled out a yellowed business card. Francis Whitmore, attorney at law, James's lawyer, a man who had known our family for decades. Beside it was a small key and a note in James's precise handwriting, "Box number 713, First National Bank, for Ellie, when you truly need it." After 7 years, that time had finally come. The bank manager looked surprised to see me the next morning, especially with Patricia by my side instead of one of my children. "Mrs. Mitchell," We don't usually see you without Rebecca. Is everything all right? I need to access my safety deposit box, I said firmly. Box 713. Of course, I'll need to see your ID and the key. Inside the private viewing room, I opened the metal box with hands that refused to tremble. On top was a blue folder labeled Eleanor's Trust in James's handwriting. Beneath it were our wills, house deed, insurance policies, and a sealed envelope with my name on it. I opened the trust documents first, scanning quickly through the legal language. The numbers jumped out at me: $1.2 million in investments, property, and insurance policies, all separate from our joint assets and the inheritance meant for Rebecca and Thomas. James, I whispered. You knew. Patricia squeezed my shoulder. He was protecting you. The sealed envelope contained a letter, dated just weeks before his death. My dearest Ellie, if you're reading this, it means the kids have finally let you down badly enough that you've come looking for protection. I hoped I was wrong about them. I've watched how they take you for granted, how they see your kindness as weakness. This trust is yours alone. I've spoken with Francis about this, and he knows what to do. The kids can't touch this money, no matter what tricks they try. Remember what I always told you: being a good parent doesn't mean being a doormat. Sometimes love means setting boundaries. I miss you every day. James. Tears blurred my vision, but I blinked them away. This wasn't the time for grief. It was time for action. I need to call Francis Whitmore, I said, gathering the documents. And I think you should stay with me for a few days, Patricia added. At least until we know what they're planning next. I nodded, suddenly grateful for her practical mind. As we left the bank, my phone rang Megan again. Grandma, Mom's been acting weird all morning. She and Dad had a huge fight, and now she's making calls about power of attorney forms. I'm scared. It's going to be all right, sweetheart, I assured her, with more confidence than I felt. You did the right thing telling me. There's more, she continued, her voice dropping. I found some papers in Dad's office, something about a home equity loan on your house, but the signature doesn't look right. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? It looks like someone tried to copy your handwriting. The Mitchell part looks just like how Mom signs her name. I exchanged glances with Patricia, whose expression had hardened into grim determination. Megan, can you send me pictures of those documents? Already did. Check your email. There was a pause. Then, Grandma, what's going to happen? I'm not entirely sure yet, I admitted. But I'm not going to let them put me in a nursing home or sell my house. Good, she said fiercely, because I've applied for on-campus housing next semester. I can't stay in this house anymore. After we hung up, I checked my email. There they were, loan documents for a $150,000 home equity line of credit, with a signature that was clearly meant to be mine, but wasn't. The Mitchell had the distinctive flourish Rebecca always used, a telltale sign I'd noticed on birthday cards for years. Forgery, Patricia said flatly. That's criminal. My phone buzzed with another text from Thomas. Mom, everything's arranged. Rebecca and I are coming Sunday to help you pack essentials for Oak Hills. The rest we can sort through later. Sunday. Just 3 days away. They had no idea I knew their plans. No idea I'd found James's trust. No idea their daughter had exposed everything. I took a deep breath, feeling strangely calm despite everything. Patricia, I need to make some calls. It's time to stop being the dutiful mother they can exploit. That's the Eleanor Mitchell I've been waiting to see. Patricia smiled. James would be proud. As we drove back to Patricia's house, not my own, which no longer felt safe, I watched my neighborhood pass by. The maple trees James and I had planted 30 years ago, the park where Rebecca had learned to ride a bike, the corner where Thomas had waited for the school bus. Memories of a family I thought I had, now overlaid with the reality of what they had become. My chest ached, partly from surgery, mostly from heartbreak, But beneath the pain was something new and unfamiliar, a steely resolve that reminded me of James. They had chosen money over their mother. I would choose myself over their betrayal. The game had changed, and they didn't even know it yet. Francis Whitmore still used a fountain pen. He was the kind of lawyer who kept physical copies of everything, who wore suspenders in summer, and who remembered your children's birthdays long after you'd forgotten his assistant's name. When I walked into his office the next morning, he stood slowly, his knees clearly showing his 78 years, and smiled like we were just continuing a conversation from yesterday rather than resuming one from 7 years ago. "Eleanor," he said, gesturing to the worn leather chair across from his oak desk. "I was beginning to think I'd only see you again in probate court." "Let's try to avoid that a bit longer, Francis," I replied, settling carefully into the seat. The surgical incision across my chest still pulled painfully when I moved too quickly. Patricia had insisted on driving me. She sat beside me now, her spine straight, her expression vigilant like she was still in the ER, monitoring vital signs. Francis pulled out the manila folder I'd brought from the bank, James's trust documents, our wills, and now the forged loan documents Megan had sent me. "You've been busy," he said, scanning the papers through half-moon reading glasses. "I've been honest," I corrected him. "That's always the hardest part." He nodded thoughtfully. We'd known each other for nearly 40 years, since James and I had first sought his help with buying our house. He'd guided us through wills, investments, powers of attorney. He'd watched Rebecca and Thomas grow up, graduate, marry, divorce. He'd seen it all. "James suspected this might happen," Francis said finally, tapping the trust documents. "Not the specifics, but the general direction. He saw how they treated you even when he was alive." "Why didn't he say anything?" I asked, a hint of betrayal coloring my voice. "He did, Eleanor, many times, but you weren't ready to hear it." Francis's gaze was kind but unflinching. "You wanted to believe the best of your children. Most parents do." I looked down at my hands, the blue veins prominent against thinning skin. "I still do. Part of me still wants to believe this is all a misunderstanding." Francis sighed and laid out the documents one by one. The forged home equity loan, the falsified insurance denial, the recorded conversation about putting you in a nursing home to gain control of your assets, the meeting with realtors before you even had surgery. He looked up at me. "At what point does it stop being a misunderstanding? Eleanor?" Patricia reached over and squeezed my hand. "What are my options?" I asked, my voice steadier than I expected. Francis leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "Legally, you're in a strong position. The trust James set up is ironclad. Rebecca and Thomas cannot touch it under any circumstances. Your current will splits your assets evenly between them, but you can change that at any time. The house is solely in your name since James's death, so you have full authority to keep it or sell it as you see fit." "And the forged loan?" Patricia interjected. "That's more serious," Francis said, his expression darkening. "Forgery is a criminal offense. We can contest it immediately with the bank and have it invalidated. But if you want to press charges—" "I don't," I said quickly. "They're still my children." Francis and Patricia exchanged a glance I couldn't quite interpret. "At minimum, we need to protect you from further financial exploitation," Francis continued. "I recommend several immediate steps. Revoke any financial permissions Rebecca or Thomas may have. Change your will, secure your house, and document everything in case this becomes contentious." "How contentious could it get?" I asked. "They could try to declare you incompetent," he said bluntly. "It's a common tactic when elderly parents don't cooperate with adult children's financial plans. Your recent heart surgery gives them an opening to claim you're not capable of managing your affairs." My stomach clenched. "They wouldn't." "The recording suggests otherwise," Patricia said gently. I closed my eyes briefly, remembering Rebecca's cool voice. With her heart condition, it won't take much to convince the court she's no longer competent to make decisions. "What do I need to sign?" I asked. opening my eyes with new resolve. For the next hour, Francis and his assistant prepared documents, a revocation of all previous powers of attorney, a new healthcare directive naming Patricia as my healthcare proxy instead of Rebecca, a revised will, and letters to every financial institution where Rebecca or Thomas might have access. As I signed the last document, my phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. "Mom, we're coming tomorrow to help you get settled. Thomas has found a wonderful place for you to rest and recover." I showed the message to Francis and Patricia. "They're moving faster than expected." Francis frowned. "They may already suspect something's amiss." "What should I do?" I asked. "Go home with Patricia. Secure any valuable documents or items. Don't let them in without witnesses present. And Eleanor," he added, his voice gentling. "Prepare yourself. This won't be easy." I nodded, suddenly exhausted. None of this has been easy. "Francis." As we stood to leave, he asked, "Have you decided what to do about Megan? She's taken considerable risk to help you." "I'm thinking about that," I said. "She deserves better than to be caught in the middle." Outside, the October air was crisp with the promise of winter. Patricia drove us back to her house in silence, respecting my need to process everything. It wasn't until we were sitting in her sunny kitchen with cups of tea that she spoke. "Are you ready for them to come tomorrow?" I stared into my cup. "No. But I don't think I'll ever be ready to confront my children about wanting to put me away and steal my home." "You don't have to do it alone," she reminded me. "I'll be there. And Francis said he can send his assistant if you want a legal witness." My phone rang Megan again. "Grandma," she whispered, "they're coming tomorrow, not Sunday. Mom just booked a moving service for 10 a.m. They're bringing boxes." I slept poorly that night, dreams filled with hospital corridors that never ended and doors that locked behind me. I woke early, my chest aching both from surgery and anxiety. Patricia made breakfast, but I could barely eat. "You need your strength," she insisted, pushing a plate of toast toward me. "What I need is courage," I replied. "You have that already," she said firmly. "You just haven't needed to use it until now." By 9 o'clock, we were at my house. Francis's assistant, a serious young woman named Laurel, arrived shortly after with a folder of copies of everything I'd signed yesterday. At 9:45, Patricia positioned herself in the kitchen while I sat in James's old armchair in the living room. Laurel perched discreetly in the dining room with her notebook. At exactly 10:02, a silver Lexus SUV pulled into my driveway, followed by Thomas's blue sedan. I watched through the window as Rebecca emerged first, immaculate in a camel coat and designer boots. Thomas followed, looking rumpled and tired, his eyes hidden behind sunglasses despite the cloudy day. Behind them, a white van with reliable moving services painted on the side parked at the curb. The doorbell rang. I took a deep breath and nodded to Patricia, who went to answer it. "Patricia." Rebecca's surprise was evident in her voice. "What are you doing here?" "Supporting your mother," Patricia replied coolly, stepping aside. "She's in the living room." Rebecca's heels clicked across the hardwood floors as she entered, her professional smile faltering slightly when she saw me sitting calmly in the armchair. Thomas followed, hands shoved in his pockets, eyes darting around the room. "Mom." Rebecca recovered quickly, her voice shifting to the soothing tone one might use with a child. "You should have told us you were discharged. We would have picked you up. I called you 12 times from the hospital," I said quietly. "You didn't answer." Thomas at least had the grace to look ashamed, but Rebecca's smile didn't waver. "Oh, there must have been some confusion with the hospital. We were told you needed more time to recover before visitors." "That's not what the nurses said," I replied, keeping my voice level. "They said you never answered their calls either." An awkward silence fell. Rebecca's eyes flicked to Patricia, then to Laurel, whom she clearly didn't recognize. "Who's this?" she asked sharply. "This is Laurel, Francis Whitmore's assistant." I explained. "She's here as my witness." "Witness." Thomas spoke for the first time, his voice hoarse. "Witness for what, Mom?" "For this conversation." I said simply. "Please, sit down, both of you." They exchanged a glance but complied, Rebecca perching on the edge of the sofa while Thomas sank into the adjacent armchair. "Mom, we've arranged everything," Rebecca began, her voice brisk and efficient. "Oak Hills has a lovely room ready for you. It's a rehabilitation facility, just temporary until you're back on your feet." "I'm already on my feet," I pointed out, "and I have no intention of going to Oak Hills or any other facility." Rebecca's smile tightened. "Mom, be reasonable. Your heart needs professional care. We can't provide that." "My cardiologist says I'm recovering well," I countered. "I have follow-up appointments scheduled and a home health nurse coming next week." "But the house," Thomas started. "Is my home," I finished for him. "And I'm not selling it." Rebecca's composure slipped slightly. "Mom, we're just trying to help. The maintenance on this place is too much for you now. And with the medical bills—" "What medical bills would those be, Rebecca?" I asked, reaching for the folder Laurel had brought. "The ones from the insurance denial letter you fabricated, because my insurance company has no record of denying my claim. In fact, they approved it weeks ago." The color drained from Rebecca's face. Thomas sat up straighter, confusion evident in his expression. "What are you talking about?" he asked. "Rebecca said the insurance denied coverage. That's why we need to sell—" "There was never a denial," I said, passing him the confirmation letter from the insurance company. "The procedure was covered. There are no medical bills." Thomas read the letter, then looked at his sister with dawning comprehension. "Rebecca, what did you do?" "Nothing," she snapped. "Mom's confused. The doctor said this might happen after surgery memory issues, confusion about finances." "I'm not confused," I said calmly. "I also know about the home equity loan with my forged signature." The silence that followed was deafening. Rebecca's carefully constructed facade cracked completely, her expression hardening into something I barely recognized. "How did you—" she began, then stopped herself. Her eyes narrowed. "Megan, she's been snooping through my office." "Does it matter how I found out?" I asked. "The point is, I know what you two have been planning. The fake insurance denial, the nursing home, selling my house without my knowledge, taking power of attorney to control my assets." Thomas looked genuinely stunned. "Mom, I didn't know about any forged documents. Rebecca told me the insurance claim was denied and that the doctors recommended a care facility." "Don't play innocent, Thomas," Rebecca cut in sharply. "You knew exactly what was happening. You're the one who found out about the rezoning that tripled the property value." I looked at my son, searching his face for any sign of the little boy who once made me Mother's Day cards with crayon hearts. All I saw was a middle-aged man crumbling under the weight of his own failures. "Is that true?" I asked him. He couldn't meet my eyes. "I heard about the rezoning from a buddy on the city council. But Mom, we were going to use that money to take care of you. And to help with Jason's college fund, and to pay off Robert's gambling debts," I finished. "To fund another one of your failed business ventures." Thomas flinched as if I'd slapped him. "How dare you!" Rebecca hissed, rising to her feet. "After everything we've done for you, everything you've done for me," I repeated, incredulity rising in my voice. "When exactly was that, Rebecca? When you left me alone in the hospital, when you forged my signature, when you planned to drug me into compliance at Oak Hills." Her eyes widened in shock. I reached for my phone and pressed play on Megan's recording. Rebecca's voice filled the room. "With her heart condition, it won't take much to convince the court she's no longer competent to make decisions." Thomas buried his face in his hands as his own voice followed. "My buddy works at Oak Hills. They know how to keep old folks busy and dependent on medication." I stopped the recording, my heart pounding painfully against my healing incision. "You didn't just want my money. You wanted me gone." Rebecca's shock transformed into fury. "You recorded us. That's illegal." "Megan recorded you," I corrected her. "And in this state, only one party needs to consent to a recording." "Megan," Rebecca's voice rose in disbelief. "My own daughter betrayed me for you. She exposed your plan to betray me," I said quietly. "There's a difference." Rebecca grabbed her purse, her movements jerky with rage. "You've always favored her over everyone else. Well, enjoy your little victory. Mother, we'll see how well you manage on your own when you're really sick, when you can't drive yourself to appointments or remember your medications." "That's enough, Rebecca," Patricia interjected, stepping forward from the kitchen doorway where she'd been listening. "Your mother nearly died, and you couldn't even be bothered to visit her in the hospital. You don't get to claim concern for her well-being now." Rebecca turned her glare to Patricia. "Stay out of this. It's family business." "Family," I echoed. "Is that what you call people you're willing to lock away for profit?" Thomas finally looked up, his face ashen. "Mom, it wasn't like that. We were worried about you living alone after such a serious surgery." "So worried that you didn't check on me for 3 days," I asked. "So concerned that you were making plans to sell my home before I even went into the operating room." He had no answer for that. "I want you both to leave," I said, my voice steady, despite the storm of emotions inside me. "Laurel has copies of all the documents I signed yesterday. I've revoked any financial permissions either of you had. I've changed my will and my power of attorney, and I've instructed the bank to investigate the forged loan documents." "You can't be serious," Rebecca said, but there was a note of uncertainty in her voice now. "I've never been more serious in my life," I replied. "This house is mine, my money is mine, my life is mine, and I'm done being treated like an ATM that will eventually be switched off when it's no longer useful." "Mom," Thomas tried again, desperation edging into his voice. "Please, I'm in real trouble. The business is failing, and I've got creditors calling every day. I need help." For a moment, my resolve wavered. This was my son, my little boy, who had once climbed into my lap during thunderstorms. But then I remembered the recording, his willing participation in a plan to drug and control me. "You've had my help for 20 years, Thomas," I said softly. "It's time you stood on your own feet." "You'll regret this," Rebecca said, her voice cold. "When you're alone and scared and need someone, don't call us." "I already was alone and scared," I reminded her. "I woke up from heart surgery with no one beside me but a nurse I'd never met. I've already faced my worst fear. Rebecca, there's nothing left you can threaten me with." She stared at me for a long moment, as if seeing me for the first time. Then, without another word, she turned on her heel and stalked out, the front door slamming behind her. Thomas lingered, conflict evident on his face. "Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't know about the forgery. I swear." "But you knew about the nursing home," I said. "You knew about selling the house. You just didn't think I deserved to have a say in my own life." He flinched, then nodded slightly. "I messed up. I've been messing up for years." For the first time, I heard a glimmer of genuine remorse in his voice. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. "Yes, you have," I agreed. "Now go figure out how to fix your life without using mine as collateral." After Thomas left, following his sister out with slumped shoulders, I sat very still in James's chair, the weight of what had just happened settling over me like a heavy blanket. Patricia moved to the sofa, taking Rebecca's place. Laurel quietly closed her notebook. "You did well, Mrs. Mitchell," she said. "I'll report everything to Mr. Whitmore." After she left, Patricia brought me a glass of water and my pain medication. My chest was throbbing now, the stress of the confrontation taking its toll on my healing body. "They'll be back," Patricia predicted, sitting beside me again. "Once the shock wears off and they realize what they've lost." "I know," I sighed, "but I can't worry about that now. I need to focus on what comes next." Which is, I looked around the living room at the pictures I'd taken down, at the spaces where family photos had once stood, at the home James and I had built together. It still held so many memories, but now they were tarnished, overlaid with betrayal. "I think I need to sell the house," I said finally. "But on my terms, not theirs." Patricia nodded slowly. "A fresh start?" "Exactly," I agreed. "Somewhere smaller. Somewhere without ghosts." My phone buzzed with a text. "Megan. Mom knows I sent you the recording. She's furious. Can I come see you?" I typed back immediately. "Of course. I'm at home. Patricia is with me." 15 minutes later, a rideshare pulled up in front of the house. Megan emerged, a backpack slung over one shoulder and a small suitcase in her hand. Her face was blotchy from crying, her long dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Patricia opened the door before she could knock, ushering her in with a protective arm around her shoulders. When Megan saw me, she dropped her bags and rushed over, falling to her knees beside my chair. "Grandma, I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "Mom said horrible things that I betrayed the family, that I chose you over them. She told me to get out and not come back until I apologized." I stroked her hair, my heart breaking for this young woman caught between loyalty and integrity. "You did the right thing, sweetheart." "The hard thing, but the right one. Can I stay with you?" she asked, looking up with red-rimmed eyes. "Just until I can figure something out. My dorm doesn't open for winter term for another month." "Of course you can," I assured her. "For as long as you need." As Patricia helped Megan settle into the guest room, I checked my email on my phone. There was a message from Francis with the subject line, "Next Steps," and another from Dr. Bennett asking how I was recovering. But what caught my eye was an alert from my bank, "Suspicious activity detected on your account." Someone had tried to access my savings account 3 failed login attempts from an unrecognized device. They weren't giving up. They were just changing tactics. I forwarded the alert to Francis, then called the bank directly to report the attempted breach. The customer service representative sounded concerned. "Mrs. Mitchell, we've placed a security freeze on all your accounts. No one can access them without in-person verification with photo ID. Would you like to change your online banking credentials as well?" "Yes," I said firmly, "and I want to be notified of any attempts to access any of my accounts, successful or not." By the time I hung up, Megan had returned to the living room, looking slightly calmer, but still shaken. "Mom tried to get into your accounts, didn't she?" she asked perceptively. I nodded. "How did you know?" "She was on her laptop right after she kicked me out, cursing about access-denied messages." I sighed heavily. "Megan, there's something you should know. Your mother and uncle were planning to put me in a nursing home and sell this house without my consent. They forged my signature on loan documents and created a fake insurance denial letter." Her eyes widened. "I knew they were up to something bad, but I didn't realize how bad." "There's more," I continued. "Your grandfather James left me a separate trust they don't know about, and I've changed my will." Understanding dawned on her face. "That's why Mom's so angry. It's not just about the recording, it's about the money." "It's always been about the money," I said sadly, "and now I need to make sure they can't take it." That evening, as Patricia prepared a simple dinner and Megan showered, I sat at the kitchen table with a yellow legal pad, making lists, people to call, accounts to check, items to secure. A lifetime of trust dismantled in a single day, replaced by caution and vigilance. My phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. "Mom, please call me. We need to talk." I set the phone aside without answering. There would be time for talking later, after I had secured my future and Megan's. For now, I needed to focus on the next step meeting with Carla Reynolds, the financial advisor Francis had recommended, first thing tomorrow morning. The game of chess my children had started was far from over, but for the first time, I was playing to win. Carla Reynolds's office smelled of fresh coffee and new leather. Unlike Francis's traditional wood-paneled sanctuary, her space was modern glass and chrome, with digital screens displaying market trends and retirement projections. At 50, she was a confident black woman with close-cropped silver hair and a no-nonsense manner that immediately put me at ease. "Mrs. Mitchell, she said, extending a firm handshake. Francis has filled me in on your situation. I specialize in protecting seniors' assets from financial exploitation. Unfortunately, I see cases like yours more often than you'd think. Even from their own children, I asked. Settling into a chair across from her desk, Megan sat beside me, notebook open, pen ready. She'd insisted on coming along, determined to understand everything. Especially from their own children, Carla confirmed grimly. Family members account for over 60% of elder financial abuse cases. They have access, trust, and often a sense of entitlement to your assets. She spread out the documents Francis had sent over, along with the information I'd brought about my accounts. First, let's review what you've already done, she said briskly. You've revoked financial permissions, changed your will, secured your legal documents, and placed a freeze on your accounts. All excellent steps. But they're still trying to access my accounts, I pointed out. Which brings us to phase 2 of your protection plan. Carla typed rapidly on her keyboard, bringing up my financial portfolio on one of her screens. We need to restructure your assets to make them more secure. And for the next hour, she outlined a comprehensive strategy moving funds to new accounts at different institutions, setting up trusts that couldn't be contested, establishing a clear paper trail of my cognitive competence, and creating a transparent financial plan for my future needs. What about the house? Megan asked. Grandma's thinking of selling it. Carla nodded. Given its increased value due to rezoning, that's a smart move. We can structure the sale to maximize your return and protect the proceeds. I want to set aside money for Megan's education, I added. Regardless of what happens with Rebecca. Megan started to protest, but I squeezed her hand. You deserve to finish college without debt, sweetheart. Your grandfather would have wanted that. Carla made notes. We can establish an education trust. Rebecca and Thomas won't be able to touch it. As we wrapped up, Carla fixed me with a direct look. Mrs. Mitchell, there's one more thing we need to discuss. Your children might escalate when they realize you've cut off their financial access. They might try to declare you incompetent. My stomach clenched. Francis mentioned that. It happens frequently. That's why I'm arranging for you to have a geriatric psychological evaluation next week. Having an independent assessment of your cognitive capacity will protect you if they try that route. I nodded, grateful for her foresight. Thank you, Carla. For the first time since this all started, I feel like I'm regaining control. That's exactly the goal, she smiled. Now, let's talk about selling your house. I know an excellent realtor who specializes in properties being rezoned for commercial use. On the drive home, Megan was unusually quiet, staring out the window as Patricia navigated through midday traffic. What's on your mind? I asked her. She turned to me, her young face troubled beyond her years. Do you think Mom and Uncle Thomas will ever understand what they did wrong? I considered this carefully. Thomas might. He seemed genuinely shaken when I confronted them. But your mother. I sighed. Rebecca has always been skilled at justifying her actions. She called again this morning, Megan admitted. She said I've destroyed our family for nothing, that you're manipulating me like you've always manipulated everyone. And what do you think? I asked gently. I think she's projecting. Megan replied with surprising insight. She's the manipulator, not you. I've watched her do it my whole life to Dad, to Uncle Thomas, to me. I just never realized she was doing it to you too. I reached over and squeezed her hand, my heart swelling with pride for this young woman's wisdom. You know, she continued, I applied to law school for next fall. I was going to tell Mom after midterms, but now... She trailed off. Now what? I prompted. Now I think I want to specialize in elder law, she said firmly. Help people like you, Grandma. Make sure this doesn't happen to others. As we pulled into Patricia's driveway, we'd been staying with her since the confrontation, not quite ready to return to my house. My phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Mrs. Mitchell, this is Dr. Sarah Bennett, your cardiac surgeon. Dr. Bennett, I said, surprised. Is everything all right? Medically, yes, but I'm calling about your daughter, Rebecca. She contacted me yesterday, asking for documentation stating you're not mentally competent to manage your affairs due to post-surgical cognitive impairment. My blood ran cold. What did you tell her? I told her that was absurd. You've shown no signs of cognitive impairment, and I would not falsify medical records. But Eleanor, her voice softened. She's not giving up. She mentioned consulting another doctor who might be more understanding of the family's concerns. Thank you for warning me, I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. Of course. And if you need me to testify to your competence, I'd be happy to do so. I've seen too many capable seniors railroaded by family members. After hanging up, I relayed the conversation to Patricia and Megan. She's getting desperate, Patricia observed. That's dangerous. It's also illegal, Megan added fiercely. Attempting to falsify medical records, Mom could lose her law license for that. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, I said, though part of me wondered if Rebecca had already crossed too many lines to turn back. That evening, as Patricia prepared dinner and Megan worked on a term paper, my phone lit up with a text from Thomas. Mom, please talk to me, not about money, just talk. I'm sorry. After 3 days of silence, his message stirred something in me, not forgiveness. Not yet, but perhaps a willingness to listen. I stepped onto Patricia's back porch and called him. He answered on the first ring. Mom? His voice was rough, as if he'd been drinking or crying or both. I'm here, Thomas. I've been thinking about everything, he said in a rush. About what I did. There's no excuse. I knew it was wrong, but I let Rebecca convince me it was for your own good. Was it for my own good to be abandoned in the hospital? I asked quietly. He made a sound like he'd been struck. No, God, no. Rebecca said she'd arranged for a private nurse to be with you. I believed her. I should have checked. Yes, you should have. I wasn't going to make this easy for him. I've been sober for 3 days, he continued after a pause. First time in years. Started going to meetings. That's good, Thomas. And I told Jason everything. About what we tried to do to you. About my drinking. About all of it. That surprised me. How did he take it? Better than I deserved. Said he already knew I was a mess, but at least now I was an honest mess. He laughed weakly. Kid's smarter than I was at his age. We were silent for a moment, the weight of broken trust between us. Rebecca's not stopping. Mom, he finally said. She's talking about getting a court order, claiming you're having post-surgical dementia. She's already spoken to a lawyer. I know, I said. Dr. Bennett called me. Another pause. I won't be part of it. I told her I'm done. She's not happy with me. Are you telling me this to warn me or to get back in my good graces? I asked bluntly. Both, he admitted, his honesty surprising me again. I'm trying to do the right thing, finally. But I also miss my mom. I closed my eyes, feeling the October breeze against my face. I appreciate the warning, Thomas, and I'm glad you're getting help. But trust takes time to rebuild. I know, he said quietly. Can I call you again? Yes. I decided. You can call. But Thomas, if this is another manipulation, it's not, he interrupted. I swear. Mom, I'm trying to fix myself, not expecting anything from you. After hanging up, I sat for a while, watching the sunset paint Patricia's garden in gold and amber. I wasn't naive enough to believe Thomas had changed completely in just a few days, but the seed of hope had been planted. For him, at least. Rebecca was another matter entirely. The for sale sign went up the following week. With the property now zoned for commercial development, interest was immediate and intense. Carla's realtor friend, Lisa, fielded multiple offers within days. This is extraordinary. Mrs. Mitchell, she said during our update call. "We've had 6 offers already, all well above asking price. The highest is $875,000. Almost triple what James and I had paid decades ago. The figure was staggering. "How quickly could we close?" I asked, thinking of Rebecca's escalating threats. "The top bidder is a development company ready to close in 30 days with cash," Lisa replied. "No contingencies, no financing delays." "Let's do it," I decided. Meanwhile, Megan and I had been house hunting for me, looking at smaller, more manageable properties. We found a perfect 2-bedroom condo in a secure building for active seniors, just 10 minutes from Patricia's house and close to shops and medical offices. "It's ideal, Grandma," Megan said as we toured it for the second time. "Single level, elevator access, that beautiful sunroom for your plants." I could see myself there, starting fresh without the weight of painful memories. "Let's make an offer," I agreed. The next day, Rebecca finally made her move. A certified letter arrived at Patricia's house, a notice of a hearing for temporary guardianship, claiming I was suffering from post-surgical cognitive decline and making financially irresponsible decisions. Francis was furious when I called him. "This is exactly what we prepared for," he assured me. "With Dr. Bennett's statement, your geriatric evaluation, and Carla's financial assessment all confirming your competence, Rebecca doesn't have a legal leg to stand on." "But we still have to fight it," I pointed out. "Yes, and we will. Forcefully." His voice softened. "Eleanor, this is a desperate move from someone watching their plans crumble. We'll handle it." The hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. In the meantime, we moved forward with selling my house and buying the condo. Every legal document was meticulously prepared. Every medical evaluation documented my clear cognition, and every financial decision was carefully recorded to demonstrate my competence. Thomas called every few days, always sober, always apologetic. He didn't ask for money, didn't mention the upcoming hearing, just talked about his meetings, about Jason, about mundane things that somehow mattered now. Rebecca, on the other hand, escalated her campaign. She called Patricia's neighbors, claiming I was being held against my will. She contacted my former colleagues, spinning stories about my declining health. She even showed up at my doctor's office, demanding to speak with Dr. Bennett, who promptly had her escorted out. Through it all, I maintained a calm I didn't know I possessed. The surgery scar on my chest was healing, pink and tender but no longer painful. In a way, it mirrored my emotional state, damaged but mending, forever changed but growing stronger. The day before the guardianship hearing, everything changed again. Francis called early, his voice unusually animated. "Eleanor, Rebecca's attorney just withdrew the petition for guardianship." "What? Why?" "Apparently, she tried to submit falsified medical documentation. The attorney discovered it was forged and withdrew rather than face ethics charges." I sat down heavily. "She forged medical records." "Tried to." Fortunately, her attorney had the sense to verify them with the supposed issuing physician, who confirmed they were fabricated. "What happens now?" "Nothing. The case is withdrawn." "But Eleanor..." He paused. "This could have serious professional consequences for Rebecca. Forgery, attempting to use falsified documents in court, these are not just ethical violations, they're potential crimes." I closed my eyes, feeling a complex mixture of relief and sorrow. My daughter, my firstborn, had gone so far over the line that she might lose everything she'd worked for: her law license, her reputation, possibly even her freedom. "What should I do?" I asked. "Legally nothing. The system will handle this. But as her mother..." Francis sighed. "That's not for me to say." After we hung up, I sat in Patricia's sunroom, surrounded by her collection of African violets, and tried to sort through my feelings. Part of me wanted to call Rebecca, to warn her, to help her somehow. But another part, the part that had lain in a hospital bed alone, the part that had discovered her forgery and deceit held back. Megan found me there an hour later. still lost in thought. "Grandma, the moving company called. They can pack up your house next Tuesday." I looked up at her, this bright, compassionate young woman who'd risked her relationship with her mother to do the right thing. "Rebecca tried to forge medical documents," I told her, "for the guardianship hearing." Megan sat beside me, taking my hand. "Are you okay?" "I'm worried about what will happen to her," I admitted, "despite everything." "Because you're a good person," Megan said simply. "Better than she deserves right now. She's still my daughter. And my mother," Megan added softly, "but that doesn't excuse what she's done." We sat in silence for a while, both contemplating the broken pieces of our family. "Should I warn her?" I finally asked, "about the professional consequences?" Megan considered this thoughtfully. "Would it change anything? Or would she just see it as another opportunity to manipulate you?" The wisdom in her question struck me deeply. "You're right. She needs to face the consequences of her actions. That's the only way she might ever change." Later that day, as I packed some personal items to take to the condo, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Mrs. Mitchell, this is Robert Cunningham, Rebecca's husband. I hadn't spoken to him in months." "Robert?" I said cautiously. "What can I do for you?" "I'm calling about Rebecca," he said, his voice strained. "She's in trouble. Eleanor, serious trouble. Her firm found out about the forged documents and suspended her pending an investigation. She's not handling it well." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, meaning it despite everything. "Look, I know what she did to you was wrong," he continued. "I tried to talk her out of it, but you know how she gets when she's fixed on something." I did know. Rebecca had always been relentless. Even as a child, whether learning to ride a bike or arguing a point, she never gave up. It was what made her a successful attorney and, apparently, a dangerous adversary. "What are you asking of me, Robert?" He sighed heavily. "Nothing you should give. I thought you should know. She's losing everything she cares about, her job, possibly her license. She won't admit it, but she's scared." "And the gambling debts?" I asked quietly. "The ones you were hoping to pay off with my house money?" A long pause. "She told you about those?" "Not exactly, but I know." Another sigh. "I'm getting help for that. Too late for a lot of things, but I'm trying." After we hung up, I felt strangely unburdened, not happy about Rebecca's situation, but reassured that I'd made the right choices to protect myself. Sometimes the most painful consequences are also the most necessary. The next week passed in a whirlwind of activity. The house sale closed, with the proceeds safely deposited according to Carla's careful plan. The condo purchase was finalized. Movers packed and transported the belongings I'd decided to keep: my favorite books, James's chair, family photos from happier times, kitchenware that held decades of memories. Thomas helped with the move, showing up sober and reliable each day, working alongside the professional movers without complaint. He didn't ask for anything, didn't mention money, just offered his strength and time. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was a beginning. Megan decorated the condo, transforming it from a blank space into a warm home with plants, colorful throws, and carefully arranged mementos. She'd decided to finish the semester remotely, staying with me until her dorm reopened in January. Patricia visited often, bringing homemade bread and practical housewarming gifts. "You've done it, Eleanor," she said one afternoon as we sat on my new balcony, watching birds at the feeder Megan had installed. "You've rebuilt your life on your terms." "Not entirely on my terms," I corrected her. "I never wanted to be estranged from my daughter." "Some distances can't be bridged until both people want to meet in the middle," she replied wisely. On my first night alone in the condo, after Megan had gone to a study group and the place was finally quiet, I sat in James's chair and imagined him there with me. "You were right," I told his memory. "You saw what I couldn't or wouldn't see, but I think you'd be proud of me now." I could almost hear his reply. "It's about time. Ellie." The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through new curtains, no aches from stairs to climb, no echoing emptiness of a too-large house, just peace, simplicity, and the knowledge that every decision from now on would be mine to make. My phone chimed with a text from Thomas. "Jason and I would like to visit this weekend if that's okay. No agenda. Just want to see your new place." I smiled and typed back, "I'd like that. Bring appetites, I'm making James's famous lasagna." As I made coffee in my new kitchen, I felt a sense of contentment I hadn't experienced in years. Not happiness. Exactly, there was still too much unresolved grief for that, but a quiet satisfaction in standing my ground, in drawing boundaries that should have been drawn long ago. Rebecca hadn't contacted me since the guardianship petition was withdrawn. I didn't know if she ever would. That door remained closed for now, but not locked, not from my side. At least, later that morning, as I arranged books on new shelves, my phone rang. It was Carla Reynolds. "Great news, Eleanor. The Education Trust for Megan is officially established. The funds are secure and can only be used for her education expenses, no matter what happens with Rebecca." "Thank you, Carla. That's a weight off my mind. You should be proud of everything you've accomplished these past few weeks," she continued. "Many clients in your situation never find the courage to stand up for themselves." "I had help," I acknowledged, thinking of Patricia, Francis, Megan, and in his way, James. "Yes, but you made the hard choices. That takes real strength." After we hung up, I stood by the window of my new home, looking out at a view I was still getting used to, a small park instead of my old maple tree, neighboring buildings instead of familiar houses. Different, but not worse. Just new. My heart surgery had given me more than a repaired valve. It had given me clarity, courage, and a second chance to live life on my own terms. The scar on my chest would always remind me of waking up alone in that hospital room, but also of the strength I found in that moment of abandonment. Sometimes the deepest wounds lead to the most important healing, and sometimes drawing new boundaries is the purest form of self-love.